Hello everyone, I'm John Ludgate. I'm a clinical psychologist who's specialized in CBT for a number of decades, ever since I had long hair and it was black. So I've been involved in training in CBT and supervision over many years, and actually have a training coming up which you can find on the Impact website. But today I wanted to go over a couple of questions that have been posed to me during trainings and consultations about CBT. There'll just be a couple, and I'll give some short answers to them. So I've heard participants in training often say, I'm familiar with the techniques of CBT. Why is it important that I understand the model? And I would say that the reason for that is that the model makes the interventions logical. They follow on from the way of formulating or conceptualizing a client's problems. And also it's very helpful to share the model with clients so that they understand the key role, for example, that their negative thoughts may play in their depression or their anxiety or anger, whatever their particular problem is. So I think it's important for us as therapists to understand the model so we know why these interventions are likely to be effective based on how we're conceptualizing the case. And also something that can be a very important part of CBT psychoeducation, and in itself can be very therapeutic once the client understands their problems in a new way, perhaps. And a second question that often comes up is, what is meant by CBT case conceptualization, and why is it important? I think, again, it's important because it guides our interventions, makes them more effective. Research shows that just throwing techniques at people doesn't get the best outcome. Case conceptualization can break down problems into what are the issues with regard to people's thinking, their emotions, their behaviors, and triggers. And then we can plan an effective course of treatment. We can come up with a CBT treatment plan, which will make the application of the techniques much more effective. Also, one myth about CBT, and this has often come up in questions, is does CBT go into people's past history? And I would say that in the conceptualization of problems, we're both looking at what are the present problems and how can they be broken down in terms of thoughts, feelings, behaviors, situations, and so on. But there's another form of conceptualization, sometimes called longitudinal, which is actually looking at how did the client arrive at the belief systems and ways of thinking that they now currently operate by. And this is looking into past history, messages they may have got from important people, things that may have happened to them. So the past is definitely part of modern CBT. And in coming up with a more elegant form of therapy, we need to look at both present problems and how to help clients solve them and get some reduction in symptoms. But also in the second stage of therapy, maybe a little bit later, to look more at what are some of the predisposing factors that have been there for many years and help the client looking at where they've come from, what ways of thinking they've developed, and how to perhaps modify them. So it really is a myth that CBT is not interested in past history. And then one other question that I often get is, what distinguishes CBT from other forms of therapy? How is it different, apart from some of the techniques? And I would say there's a couple of things. One is that it's a very structured form of therapy. It's quite systematic in how it approaches problems. Each session has an agenda. There's a plan for how we're going to proceed. Second, I think it's a very collaborative form of therapy. We're not telling clients how to think. We're actually encouraging them to examine their own thinking by the use of some guided questioning. So collaboration and structure are extremely important. Also, I would say one last thing. Clients are encouraged to be very active in CBT by doing homework assignments and even in sessions taking a very active role. And that may be different from other forms of therapy where the client is instructed or doesn't have a very active role in solving their own problems. They may be actually given solutions or told what might be the best course of action. So that's what collaboration refers to. And structure, which is equally important, is having a systematic approach to problems and using each session effectively so we get the maximum amount of the maximum outcome from each particular session that we have. There are many other aspects to CBT that perhaps aren't always recognized by people who have superficial knowledge of it. So check out some other trainings on the Impact website, including one that I'll be giving shortly. Thank you for your time today.